Welcome to Shootin' the Bull, the official podcast of the Championship Darts Circuit. A casual conversation about the sport of darts, talking about topics of the day from a North American perspective, featuring a cast of characters and contributors from the CDC roster and the world of darts. Now here's your host, Anthony Eugenia.
Welcome to the pregame coverage of the 2024 CDC Cross-Border Darts Challenge from Uptown Social in Michigan City, Indiana. Welcome, everybody. I'm Anthony Eugenia, part of the Shooting the Bull podcast team, the official podcast of the CDC. I'm happy to be joined this evening by my teammate members. Jeff McMahon behind the scenes, pushing the buttons to get all the pictures done and the broadcast out. And Nils Nelson, who normally is there in the chat with all of you. A chance now to get to see Nils and say hello. Hello, Nils. All right. So we are ready to get underway with the 2024 CDC Cross-Border Darts Challenge. We look back, Jeff Smith hoisted the inaugural trophy last year, so lots of excitement brewing here as we get ready to go this evening. So let's jump in. Me and Nils are ready to bring you some analysis and a look at these games. So let's take a look at the bracket first. We'll bring up the event bracket. So these are the players in the tournament. The field was filled by the top 6 from each nation, the United States and Canada, based on last year's rankings. And then there were 2 wildcard selections on each, with the top 4 from each nation being seeded. So you'll see in there, USA number 1, Canadian number 4, Canadian 1, USA 4, and that's how the bracket was filled out, and the additional players were drawn in on a random basis. So there's your bracket, and Nils and I are going to walk through the bracket for you, and we're going to do some analysis. So first off, let's start up in that left quad with the USA number 1 seed, Alex Spellman. He's a former Continental Cup champion, and he's taken on Sylvain Bordeaux, coming off his debut season on the Championship Darts Circuit. So Nils, give us a little, take on these guys and how you see this match playing out.
Well, I mean, we have the incomparable Alex Spellman, right? We know what we get from Alex. Sylvain is kind of a neat little story. I mean, he come on the scene last year and kind of just slowly worked his way up the ranks. And I believe he's in the top 25 now. So he most definitely deserves to be in this event. I'm a little concerned about Sylvain, though. He came out of the gates pretty strong, and then towards the latter part of the season, he kind of dipped down a little bit past where he started. My concern with that is that Spellman is a prolific shooter. We know we can get ton averages out of him. So with Sylvain, he needs to get going early on and kind of just blitz Alex, put Alex on his back foot and go. I think that is the best case scenario for him. You do not need to give Alex Spellman a break. You don't give him any time, because once that train starts leaving the track, you're not stopping it. You're going to get ton plus averages against you really, really quickly. So Sylvain's he's got to come out of the gate really fast against Spellman. I'm a little bit leery about that. I want to see what he has to throw at him. But I mean, he's not in this. He's in this for a reason. He's capable. So,
but he is facing a tough opponent in that Alex Spellman was the overall number 1 seed coming out of last year. So Alex is in fine form, and Bordeaux's got a real task on his hands.
Right, and so, we're coming out of the winter season too. So let's see how much work Sylvain put in, because he does have the skill, and it could be an interesting match, but if that Spellman train leaves the station, we're in trouble.
So Nils giving you right out of the gate the overall 1 seed in Spellman. So now we move down the bracket and we see the Canadian number 4 seed, Keith Way, who's been very impressive when he's got these opportunities in the big events in last year's Cross-Border and Continental Cup action. He takes on Jules Van Dongen. So give us a little look here, Nils, at Way and Van Dongen.
Well, Keith Way is what I would consider a yeoman. He's a professional player. He pushes and pushes and pushes, just grind, grind, grind. And that's why he's in the position he's in, and he's been playing at this level for so long. He knows how to grind through these matches, and he doesn't really care who the opponent is. He's faced everybody in the CDC. He knows who they are. He knows how great they can be. He also knows how great he can be. Jules is, of course, a PDC tour card holder. Lost his tour card, got it back through the Q school. And what I've seen with Jules is he's really put on a lot of work into the PDC. Now, he's coming back here, and I think he has a point to prove in this, but Keith Way is not a joke. Keith has the capability of coming at him really strong. And I'm hedging my bets on this one. I'm not really sure which way to go. I kind of lean more towards Jules in this, but I've seen Keith play enough times to know that he will grind out a match.
Well, I'll put you on the hot seat. Give me a pick. Give me a pick.
I mean, honestly, I gotta go with the PDC guy on this. It's more so that he's been facing all of these top guys over and over. And I keep my eye on Jules when he's playing, a lot of the floor matches. He's losing matches, but he's losing 6-5.
So you've got Spellman Way moving into that next. I mean, no, apologies. Spellman Van Dongen moving into that next round.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So before I get your pick on those two guys, we did do an informal poll just to see what the fans, early doors when the bracket got posted up. So Alex Spellman was the consensus pick on both X and Facebook to come out of the first quadrant. So what says Nils, Spellman or Van Dongen to move into the semis?
I got Spellman. Like I at this point, I know Jules is pushing and pushing and pushing. But I really think I think he's got something in the tank early doors of this season, and I think he wants to show it.
So Nils booked Spellman as the first player coming out of quad 1 in the semis. So let's move on down in the bracket. Quad number 2, lower left, we've got Jacob Taylor, the Canadian number 2 seed, playing his stablemate, Larry Butler. So Taylor Butler, very intriguing matchup here as we move down the bracket, Nils.
Yeah, so last year with Taylor, I was kind of a little bit disappointed in his overall performance on the year compared to the year before. And I kind of see this year, I think he's going to get a little bit of a redemption going. I think he's going to start pushing for, I believe he's probably putting a little more time in on the boards this year based on last year's performance. Not that he played bad by any means, but I think the field caught up to where he was, and it's kind of, now it's time to hit that next gear. Larry Butler, what are you going to say about Larry? He's been around, I don't know how many years, and he...
a whole bunch, but he's performed each and every year. He finished top 10 last year in the CDC,
right?
Maybe overshadowed by some other players, but statistically and, by performance, Butler's still getting it done. He's historically the most prolific winner in CDC history. So, Butler never gets discounted, but let's grab a pick from you and move down the bracket. Who are you going with?
So I just think that Taylor, like Spellman, I think he's going to make some moves this year. And I think it starts here with the cross-border tournament. You never know what's going to happen with these guys, but I think Taylor, based on last year's performance, I think knowing what this tournament's about and trying to make sure that he keeps that going into the season, I think this is a motivation tournament for him.
Okay. So Taylor moves on, and who will he face? Next match in that section is Leonard Gates, the number 3 seed, taking on Jake McMillan. We saw Jake really burst onto this on the CDC scene anyway last year. Great performance on stage there at MSG, taking on a player who's just continued to perform at a really high level here in the United States and overseas. So give us what could be a toughie in Gates McMillan.
Yeah, so McMillan, like I don't know that any of us really expected this from him. Well, like he kind of reminds me of Taylor during the pandemic when we came out of the pandemic. Here, all of a sudden, here's this guy Jacob Taylor, and it kind of reminds me of Jake McMillan is going down that same path. He has an excellent game, very good on his doubles, moves through the game, does not get frustrated, doesn't worry about what his opponents are doing. But on the flip side of that, you have Gates. And Gates has been traveling across the globe, and he's constantly pushing, finding that next gear. When you think he's down and out, all of a sudden he comes out of nowhere. Even if it's a double 13, he still finds that double 13, right? So
he won a championship on double 13.
That's right. So I really, I think this is a very intriguing matchup. And I think both of them are capable. I got to push my nod onto Gates on this one, just on sheer experience alone for the last year and what he's been accomplishing.
And, quite honestly, social media agrees with you on that one. In some regard, a little tight on Facebook, just a few percentage points has Gates. The fans say Gates getting into the semifinals over Taylor. So what say you? Who is going to be in that semifinal facing Alex Spellman from that quadrant?
Well, again, we're in this situation with Gates where he's been traveling around. He's been facing stiff competition over and over again. But I got to go back to what I was saying in the previous match with Taylor. I think that he kind of had that sophomore slump thing, and I think he wants to come out of the gate. Now, I think he wants to push hard. I think this is an excellent matchup for him to kind of put himself back in the limelight, so to speak. I got Taylor coming out of this over Gates.
All right, so Nils setting you up there. Left side of the bracket for Nils Nelson is Alex Spellman taking on Jacob Taylor. So we will now progress to the upper right of our bracket in quadrant 3. You see up there the number 1 seed for the Canadian side is Excalibur, David Cameron, and he's taking on Doug Boehm, another player that we've seen perform really well on a big stage, really setting a fire Madison Square Garden, leading the night off most famously, and just had the joint rock. And so player definitely of some caliber in Boehm, but Cameron is proven to be just rock solid. Not only in the CDC circuit, but when he's gone overseas to play in the seniors events. So, Boehm, Cameron, Nils, what do we see?
Yeah, these are two of my favorite players in the CDC. They're professional players. They really enjoy the game of darts. You watch them play, and you can see the enjoyment. You can see the disappointment on occasion too from both of them. Boehm is like, you just don't know. That guy can go absolutely ballistic and just throw lights out for 8 games straight. And all of a sudden you're looking at going, what just happened? But David Cameron is a professional player. He is again another yeoman type player. He goes in there and he just grinds out wins. We've seen it year in and year out where he just grinds and grinds and grinds. It doesn't get too frustrated with himself. Has very solid base, very, very, very good control over his darts the majority of the time. So, like, as much as I love Boehm, I got to go with Excalibur on this one.
He's going with Cameron. So he's got Cameron moving on, folks. So now next up in the bracket, another real interesting contest in Danny Lauby, a newly minted PDC tour card holder. He's your USA number 4 seed. He takes on the sniper and Steve Warnock, and very akin to Keith Way. Steve has performed extremely well when he's gotten these opportunities. He's qualified for the Continental Cup and played well there. Played very well really endeared himself to the fan base on the East Coast last year at the Cross-Border. So, intriguing here with Laube and Warnock, Nils.
Yeah. So, um, I think first of all, Warnock scares me as a player. I mean, that guy at any point, like every one of these guys, they're not in this tournament for no reason. I've seen him get in a zone, you can look in his eyes and you can see it's like he's going to kill the dartboard, right? And I think that's huge for him. Plus, he's just a monster of a guy. I mean, that's scary. But then we got Laube. Laube, in I would say the last 3 years, he laced up his boots and he went to work every day.
Yep.
And he worked and worked and worked. Doesn't want to be in his dad's shadow. He wants to be Danny Laube. And, he went to the PDC, went through the developmental tour, and now he's on the main tour. And the floor events, he's another one. Like Jules, he's losing, but it's 6'5", and he's putting up big averages. I think this could be a really tight race on this one.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I got to go with experience on this, and I got to push for my guy Laube.
Okay, so Nils is keeping the seeds. See, I think so far Jules is the only non-seeded player coming through. So Nils has Cameron taking on Laube. The social media both going with Laube, just barely edging out Cameron to come through quad 3. So what says Mr. Nelson between Cameron and Laube to come through quad number 3 to the semis?
But I really look at Laube and I look at him lacing up his boots. Cameron has been there. He knows what that's like. And I just, right now, I think that Laube wants to come back to the States and show everybody what he's produced overseas. And I think he wants to showcase that. And I think he really wants the fan base to see what North America can produce in the PDC. And I think he wants to come back and show that here. And with that, I love me some David Cameron, but I got to go with Laube on this one.
Hey, he's going Laube, folks. All right. So Danny Laube sits there on the upper right quadrant. So now we'll move down, and certainly a player of the year in the CDC last year in Stowe Buntz. He's your number 2 seed. He's going to take on John Parton. Little preview. They're going to open up the evening in session number 1, and boy, oh boy, firecrackers are going to go off immediately there with Buntz and Part going up. Buntz, the red hot player of 2023, taking on simply a legend, and no better way to get the party started than Buntz Part. But give us a nuts and bolts assessment of on the dartboard there, Nils, for Buntz and Part.
So I believe that John Part is he's only a 3-time champion. I mean, it's
just 3.
Just 3.
Twice in the PDC.
Right. So, we know what to expect from Part. We know that, once he gets that going, he can go and he can go and he can go. My concern is that he's not playing consistent darts. He hasn't been for a while. He loves the game of darts. He loves to do commentary. And, I don't know that he necessarily puts the time in that he used to do. Stowe Buntz, on the other hand, I had the pleasure of watching him when he first came out of quote-unquote retirement and got back on the horse. And what I've seen is exactly what he predicted to me back in the Steel City day. He's got a mission. He knows what he wants to accomplish. I got to say with Stowe, my hat's off to the guy for family first. And this is what this means to him. This is part of his family first thing. And I love John Part, and I think he's a great guy. I think he was a great player. I just think he's going to get overwhelmed by Stowe in this one.
And I mean, to be honest, and yeah, I certainly have to interject here. Everybody loves John. I mean, how do you not love this game? You're here watching this event because we love this sport, and how do you not love and appreciate a gentleman that's been up there at the highest level possible and lifted a trophy 3 times in his career? But as you say, outside of John, anybody else is going to have a trouble with Stowe Buntz if he carries that form from 2023. So let's round things out now, move down to the bottom part of quadrant number 4, and we're going to look at Jim Long, who's your Canadian number 3 seed, taking on Jason Brandon. This one might be one of the tightest ones we've got there. Coming out of the season, Jim Long finished 7th in the CDC rankings, Jason Brandon 8th. So, based on performance, very, very tight, Nils.
Yeah, so I was looking at the stats on these guys. Their overall average separates themselves by, I believe it was 0.72% of a point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's insane. This is the match of the night, in my opinion. I really think we're going to see fireworks from both these guys. We know Jim Long, and he'll grind his teeth and get in there and start chomping at the bit. Jason Brandon, though, that guy's throwing up some nukes right now. I've been kind of following him
up from a former
Yeah.
CDC match play champion. Jason's always in the mix.
Yeah. So the doubling percentage is almost identical. The averages are almost identical. I see this one going the absolute distance, and it's got. For me, I think it's going to come down to that who cracks the bowl, right? I really think that that's where it's going to go. And having said that, I got to give my nod to my guy Jason Brandon there.
Okay, that's it. We were going to, push Nils just off the fence a little bit there. So he's giving you Jason Brandon coming at. So he sees a Buntz Brandon quarter. Before we get there, interesting, all of the other quads were sort of consensus on social media. This one was split. Facebook went a little bit more, went to Stowe Buntz, edging out Jim Long. But on the flip side, over on X, Jim Long got the nod to come out of quadrant 4. So, Nils, your assessment there, you've got Buntz and Brandon down there in the lower quarter. Who's coming out of that to face Danny Lauby?
Yeah, this is where I'm going to lose some friends, I think. I love Stowe Buntz. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think that he, the Neon Nightmare, and brings all of that entertainment and all of that stuff. I think just Jason Brandon's going to come in there and go to work. And I think that it's an intriguing matchup for me, because I like both these guys, but I want to give Brandon the nod on this one.
So he's Jason Brandon to face Danny Lauby in that second semifinal. So you've got, before we get to your, finals, we then followed up on social media to see out of those players that the fans picked to be in the top 4, who they saw lifting the trophy at the conclusion of the cross-border. And over on X, they were all tipping Leonard Gates. And on Facebook, you saw a lot of support for Alex Spellman. So that was a, informal, fun poll we did. Not scientific by any means, but so now let's reset the table here. So Nils, on the left side of the bracket, I believe you've got Spellman facing Jacob Taylor, correct?
Yes, sir.
So who's coming out of that?
So, like, I talked a lot about Taylor. He, I think he's really wanting to come back out and show his wares. But Spellman is just a beast right now. I think that Spellman is going to, I think he's going to take this against Taylor, but it's not going to be an easy match. Taylor's like a 1080 fiend. He just nukes the board sometimes. But overall, I think that Spellman, I think he's a little more well-rounded at this point, and I think that he has the extra juice to take him into the finals.
So we don't have we see a Canadian go as far as the semis. So you've got Spellman in the final. He will play whom? You've given us picks of Lauby and Brandon, and we want to get everybody to the show. So give us a timely pick in the semis, and then give us a quick assessment on the final.
Well, as much as I like Lauby, I think that Brandon is actually in the same ilk as Spellman. I think he's gonna, lace up his boots and go to work and really push Lauby to the limit. And I want to give the nod to Brandon just because I've been watching the work that he's put in stateside versus what Lauby's put in across the pond. And I think Brandon is going to push him all the way. And I think that at the end of it, I think Brandon's going to clip him.
So Nils Nelson still on the chase. Well, but I mean that's what we're here for you to give some analysis and give us some picks from the way you see it. So then give us an overview on Spellman and Brandon for the cross-border title from Nils Nelson's perspective.
Yeah, so here I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm going to take Jason Brandon over Spellman. Like, this is a dark horse that I don't think anybody's going to agree with me, and that's fine. But there's a couple reasons for this. I think that in the overall matchup, I think that Jason Brandon's not going to care that it's Alex Spellman. And then you have to I'm also looking at the way the bracket's falling out. You're going to have Spellman playing Jules, followed by Taylor, followed by Jason Brandon. That is a grind. And those are three very tough matches that Spellman's going to have to go through. And there's one of two outcomes with that. It's either going to wear him down or it's going to incite him. One of those two things is going to happen. And I have a feeling that he's going to be a little bit worn down, and it may be just enough for Jason Brandon on point to be able to clip him and take the title. I don't know
Saturday night.
Other than that.
To your point, Saturday night is, quarterfinals through the finals. So, the players making it to the final, are going to go through three extremely tough matches on Saturday. So, it's not just performance, it's stamina. It's a lot of those factors that we talk about in CDC competition. So there you have it, folks. Nils Nelson giving you Jason Brandon, the 2024 CDC Cross-Border Champion. Well, that was some interesting stuff, and we appreciate the analysis, Nils. So
thank you.
We hope, you all out there playing along with us, making your picks and, watching the games and having fun just like we are bringing it to you. So let's, before we talk about who we're going to bring it tonight in terms of a schedule, there's one other wrinkle that we've added here to the cross-border. As we talked about, it's 8 American players, United States players, I should say, versus 8 Canadian players. And what we've done is we've introduced the Nations Cup. All right. So each of the matches are also worth a point. So there's 15 games worth a point. First team to 8 gets the Nations Cup. Last year, we saw a simply dominating performance from Team Canada. They opened up night 1 with a 6-2 advantage, nearly just, cementing the Nations Cup, and they didn't drop a match in night 2. So overall, they got 13 points to the USA's 2. And that, again, we talked about was led by Jeff Smith winning the overall championship. But Team Canada was just dominant last year, Nils. So, give me your take on this sort of wrinkle to this event and, any shot at the USA getting a little retribution, or, will Team Canada defend their Nations Cup championship status?
Well, I think that there's a point of pride here for the U.S. players. The Canadians came out and just walloped them that last year. And I think there's a point of pride here. I follow golf and the President's Cup, the Ryder Cup. You watch those events, and you watch it seems like when one country is more dominant than the other one, the next year you're going to get this, barrage of players that are coming after you, right? And I kind of see that that's going to happen this year. I think the U.S. players, I think that they kind of got a little overwhelmed with the whole thing last year, and I don't think they're going to let that come to play again this year. I have my prediction if you want it, but
well, we certainly do. But it's another thing for fans to follow along with, and a lot of fun, especially on Friday evening, as all the matches are USA versus Canada, so a lot of national pride on both sides. A lot of fun there in the crowd with flags waving and whatnot. So give us a quick Nations Cup pick. Who's winning the Nations Cup, Nils?
I have the U.S. over Canada 12-3.
All right, well, there you go.
joining us for Shooting the Bull, the official podcast of the Championship Darts Circuit. Subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode, and follow us at Champ Darts on social media to keep up with all of the latest news on North American darts.